What's up, everybody? This is Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, HawgSports.com. Halfway point of the spring. It's an interesting time to cover Razorback sports because so much is going on with Razorback football right now. Of course, you got baseball and recruiting. We're going to talk to Danny West a little bit, catch us up on some of the things going on in recruiting, and I'm going to take a lot of questions today. I'm going to answer a lot of questions about what I've seen in the spring, what you guys want to know. We'll discuss all that and more on today's episode of Hog Sports Live. Maybe, if we can get the intro going. And before we get started, of course, I want to remind you there's plenty of ways to watch and listen. You can always tune in on Facebook Live. Follow the page if you haven't done so already, like 90,000 other Razorback fans have done. Also available on YouTube. Give us a like or a thumbs up on both of those platforms. Hit the notifications bell on YouTube so you're alerted anytime we upload new videos. Also available on Apple Podcasts. Throw us that 5-star review if you haven't done so already. Certainly helps our channel a lot. Also available on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, anywhere else you think of to find your favorite podcast in Hog Sports. It's just $1 right now for your first month at HawgSports.com. Great deal. $1. $1. You don't know what you're missing if you hadn't tried it out. All right. Where do we start? A little housekeeping stuff, I guess. Arkansas baseball. Won 2-1, won the series in Fayetteville over Alabama. Dropped the first game 12-1, then won 9-6, and then 5-4 on Sunday. Next up, Arkansas State, April 4th. Be sure to follow Andrew Ellis for all of our Razorback baseball coverage. Andrew does a great job. You can follow him at Andrew Ellis 24/7 on Twitter. But Tuesday, April 4th is the midweek game. Then Arkansas heads to Oxford, April 6th, 7th, and 8th. That ought to be entertaining. Got another midweek series right after that against Little Rock. UALR coming to town April 11th and 12th, just 2 games, and then Tennessee series after that. That's what I think is going to be a really fun weekend because obviously you're going out of town this weekend. There's a scrimmage in Fayetteville, the second scrimmage. They had one on Saturday. It was completely closed. There's no stats out of it. There was no press conference, no interviews or anything. It ran about 150 plays. We know that. 150 plays. We know they work situations, 1s versus 2s, 2s versus 1, obviously. 3s versus 3s came back, 1s, 1s, 2s, 2s, 3s, 3s, situational stuff, kicking, all that stuff. But that's all we know what happened. Practice resumes on Tuesday. We'll get about an hour of practice. I assume we'll talk to Sam Pittman right after that and get a little bit of insight what went on in the scrimmage. And then they'll scrimmage again. We should get some access to that next scrimmage, I'm hoping. And then, of course, the red-white game is April 15th. So you coming up to Fayetteville, 7 o'clock, Tennessee on Friday, red-white game. I'm not sure when the red-white game is. It's pretty early. And then April 16th, they wrap up the series at 2 o'clock against Tennessee. I want to make sure I express my condolences to everybody. I know I've done that on radio shows already this week, but, man, you guys in Little Rock, Wynn, everywhere that was hit by the tornadoes. Just want you to know you're in my thoughts and prayers. Tough stuff. And it always feels weird talking sports when something like that happens. But I just want you to know that we're thinking of you guys. And I got a lot of fans. I hope I have fans there. But I have a lot of family and friends in Little Rock. And, I've been thinking about you guys. All right. Again, I'm going to take mostly questions today, but I wanted to go to Danny West, I guess, first. What else we got going? We got the national championship game tonight. Hopefully it's a better game than the college football national championship game, which was Georgia 65, TCU 7. What is the line? It's got to be a big line. See what Bet Saracen says. Okay, it's right at the top. Okay, the Bet Saracen app has 7.5. 7.5 for UConn. UConn has 4 national championships. They've only been to like 6 Final Four, so when they get to the Final Four, they usually win it. I saw an interesting deal that had, whether or not, I guess UConn was kind of in the second tier of blue bloods. It had, UCLA, Kansas, which has been like 16 Final Fours, but only won 4 national championships. I mean, you know the Blue Bloods, UCLA. Even though UCLA hasn't, it's been a little bit since they've. Obviously, they're not what they were, but they're still blue blood. They have 11 national championships. North Carolina, Duke, Kansas. I would agree with those 4. I think UConn belongs in that discussion. They've got 4 national championships. They're almost certainly going to get a 5th. Now, they lost 8 games in the regular season, but they get a 5th national championship. They have more than Kansas. I mean, you got to put them in blue blood status. I think they are that anyway. Since 1999, UConn's been a pretty impressive program. If we put UCLA in for what they did, or some people would put Indiana in. They have 5 national championships. Indiana hasn't really been that relevant, and they've been relevant, but they haven't been what they were. So, yep. I do like my Bet Saracen app. The interface is easy to use. All right. Where are we going? Let's go to Danny West, and then we're going to get to some questions. I've already posted something on the Razor's Edge Premium Forum to get a lot of questions from our fans on there. But I want to go to Danny just to get some updates on recruiting. For those of you who don't follow Danny West, what are you doing? I mean, I understand if you're just a casual Razorback fan who just wants to go to the games, but if you're somebody who watches this show, you're probably a pretty diehard Razorback fan. You should follow Danny at Danny West 24/7 on Twitter, and definitely read his content, which most of it is VIP. Most of Danny's stuff is VIP because you really can't get a lot of that stuff anywhere else, and his breakdown and analysis are really second to none.
What's up, man?
How you doing, Danny? Doing good over here.
Doing great. Great.
Yeah, doing great over here. I mean, every time I think about how things are good, weather's nice over here, I think back to people in Little Rock and Wynn and all those areas, and just think about how much they're going through right now.
It's tough, man. It's tough. I pray for them. I talked to Coach Toddy the other day. Of course, he just took the Wynn job. January, I want to say.
Yeah.
New semester. And, it's not about Coach Toddy. It's about the hometown there. But, man, it's rough right now.
Yeah.
And for him to just jump in there, I hate it for him. So, yeah, definitely praying for the whole state right now.
What did they do at Wynn? I mean, the high school was, I guess, demolished basically.
I don't know, man. I was thinking the other day after talking to him, I mean, maybe there's a nearby school that, I think they may be able to fix they should have plenty of time to fix it. I don't know how fast that turf is to put down, but, several months away. But hopefully, somebody around there can help them out and they'll still be able to play.
Yeah. But I mean, like the school, just like, where do you go to class?
I don't know about that.
I mean, like churches or something maybe nearby, or
probably.
Yeah, it's a tough situation.
It's a mess for them.
I know.
Yeah,
it's awful. And again, I just feel weird. Like I felt weird on drive time. The day of the tornado, we were still on drive time, and I just this feels just it's not important.
It's the worst. You don't want to tweet out a story or
I know.
What I mean, it's just awkward
because it just feels unimportant. But at the same time, we have jobs to do.
Yeah.
And speaking of jobs, Danny, obviously recruiting is still going strong. What's happening right now? Obviously, March was a pretty busy month for visits and stuff. What's going on in April?
Yeah, a lot coming up here. I wrote about it this morning. Several key dates coming up. Of course, tomorrow, big one tomorrow. You got a couple of key visitors coming in. Obviously, everybody wants to know about the quarterback situation. I still think, just to be honest with everybody, I think Aaron Nolan is going to probably be a little bit too much to ask if I had to guess right now. He's supposed to commit this weekend, and
April 8th,
Miami.
Right?
Yeah, Miami feels really good. A&M feels good, but shoot, I think they feel good about Patrick Mahomes. Who knows, man? But KJ Jackson, another left-handed quarterback from the Southeast, coming up from Montgomery, Alabama tomorrow. Just reconfirmed with him that he's still on for tomorrow. And, man, there's a lot to like there. Number 17 quarterback in the country. He's a 4-star on 24/7 Sports, as well as a composite, a 6'3", 215. Again, left-handed. That's unique. But I wouldn't say he's a blazing runner. Have you watched him yet, Trey?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. I wouldn't say he's a speedster type, but he's got some escapability. He can throw on the run with that left hand rolling to the left. It's pretty. So, and he's accurate. About 65% as a junior, 42-7 ratio. That's pretty good. And he rushed for 13 touchdowns over the last couple of seasons. He won 13 games this past season, and a lot of competition in there. North Carolina, I think they're liking their chances with KJ right now. Penn State's up there. I think he's going to try to visit West Virginia after seeing Arkansas. But, I see it from Arkansas' standpoint. And, if you don't get Aaron Nolan this weekend, I think you're probably going to try to put the clamps down on KJ.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm not saying it would be an immediate reaction type thing, but, we're starting to get into that quarterback time of year where you've offered 15 of them, 9 of them have committed to different schools. And, of course, Aaron Nolan this weekend, he'll make it 10 out of 15. So, it's starting to get into that time of year. But he'd be a dang good one. If you can follow up a guy like Malachi Singleton with another good one like that, SEC caliber, multiple SEC offer types, I think that would be really key. And then another Georgia kid tomorrow, Jaden Ball. Really interesting guy in his own right. He's a composite 4-star athlete. And man, I mean every word of that, athlete. He does it all, Trey. You need to check this guy out. It's actually kind of funny to watch how many positions he plays on his huddle there. But 6'1", 214, being recruited as a running back at Arkansas by Jimmy Smith. But, man, wildcat quarterback, true tailback, X-receiver, Z, punt returner. They'll line him up in the slot, bring him in motion, and he plays outside linebacker. Here's the thing I love about him. South Carolina, SEC school, wants him to play linebacker. Arkansas wants him as a running back. So, and you see guys like that who not only play – there's a lot of guys who play multiple positions, but to be recruited by 2 SEC schools at each position, that's pretty tough. So just a football player, man. I'll be curious to see what his thoughts are after tomorrow's visit. But those are just a couple. You got several coming in this weekend that I wrote about, and then, of course, the red-white game. Going to have a pretty good crew there. Obviously, April 15th coming up. They changed that date. I kept saying May 1st there forever. It was just ingrained in my head. But obviously, that changed to April 15th when the transfer portal opens back up again.
I heard Sam Pittman say that. I heard Sam Pittman say that in the press conference. I thought he just misspoke. So it's April 15th to May 1st, or it's April 15th
That's
to
right.
May 15th? Okay. Why did they decide to do it that way?
Man, I think I'm not a huge fan of it because I think if you give guys a couple of weeks after spring ball, and most everybody will be wrapped up by then, by May 1st. I don't know what their reasoning was, but I like giving guys a couple of weeks. Get out your feelings. You had a rough couple of practices during spring. You can make some emotional decisions. So curious to see how that might impact the portal. I'm sure it will in a big way. You never know what type of number to even expect anymore, but it's going to be a lot. It's going to be tough to try to track Arkansas's movement, but I'm expecting it to be a wild ride. But as you know, defensive linemen, safeties, man, I don't know. I want to get your thoughts on this, Trey. You've seen them quite a bit, but the tight end spot, could they not use another guy there?
Yeah, I think they could use an older
I'm a little bit
veteran
I'm not
tight end.
Worried about it, but
yeah, I really like Luke Haz. I just wonder about him, like as a blocker, because he's physical, but he's still 226. I mean, you can be strong, but be movable, because you don't carry enough weight. So offensive linemen are heavy.
Yeah, I get it.
But yeah, I agree with you. Interior defensive tackle, safety, I think but it'll be interesting to see also how they move things around. I just think they need like 18 scholarship defensive backs, and the numbers aren't there, whether it's safety or corner or whatever, depending on how they move guys around. The numbers just aren't there. Is there any reason specifically they moved to April 15th that they said? I just totally missed that. I mean, aside from hearing Sam say it.
I'll have to find the article I read. I just kind of skimmed over it. But it sounded to me like the coaches are the ones who pushed for it.
Yeah.
So
maybe wanting to get things wrapped up a little bit sooner.
Probably, if I had to guess. Yeah, that's probably it.
And at the same time, I mean, you got the evaluation period starts April 17th, so it's just, again, a lot of overlap. with all that, of course, the evaluation period runs through
May 31st. Yeah,
May 31st, and then you start having official visitors. Is that
technically you could right now?
Right now, and that runs through June 27th when that ends.
Yep.
So
that's right.
It's always busy, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, man, it's just hard to believe it's April 3rd already, but here we are.
Yeah.
But technically they could bring in officials anytime now, but, the trend has been over the last couple of years, we've studied it. June and July have been really, really big. Obviously, July, you can't have anybody on campus, but some of those, leftover visits, you get guys plenty of time to visit January through June. So a lot of those guys are ready by July 4th, and I'm sure they'll be doing the fireworks again this year for me.
Yeah. Anything else to add, Danny?
Man, I could probably talk for the next hour about recruiting. Do want to mention Grayson Wilson, Trey. He's a guy we've talked about a lot here lately, and rightfully so.
2025?
This dude, 2025 quarterback out of CAC right here in the state. And over the weekend came back again. I want to say this was his fourth visit since late January. Now, I know you haven't covered recruiting in a while, but you can see where this thing's headed, can't you?
Yeah.
And going to be back again in 2 weeks for the red-white game. So, I don't want to speak for Grayson. He told me after they offered on March 4th, playing for my home state means a lot to me. And as soon as he said it, I was like, okay, let's see where this one's headed. And, I haven't brought up the word commitment. He's a 2025. I don't try to push guys too early for that, type of info. But, coming back for the red-white game, I remember a time when spring games were kind of seen as an opportunity to get it going a little bit. So it wouldn't shock me if they try to spark a little 2025 interest there.
Danny, I caught your spot on the college football recruiting show, and kind of the theme felt like a little bit, could Arkansas have a top 15 recruiting class? Now, we know that they've never had a top 15 recruiting class. They've been close before. They've had several in the top 25, but just never have cracked through that top 15. But you think that might be a possibility for them this year?
I think it's possible. It's still a little bit early for me to say. I try to make ridiculous long-term projection somewhere around July. But yeah, man, the math seems to be there. Of course, rankings change every month. Our national team does a good job of reevaluating everybody, basically. Third Wednesday of every month, I should say. So, the rankings are what they are. They're always changing, so it's really tough to put down a hard calculation on it too soon. But, I think it's there. And if you were able to somehow pull off one of these 5 stars, and, I think – I'm not saying KJ Bolden is super realistic, but I think of the ones they've had on campus, he might be the most realistic one. It might require a guy like that. If you can knock down that wall, just get one out of high school. We've seen them bring in guys who were former 5 stars through the portal. But, man, you got to go out and get a 5-star at some point. It's been since 2016 out of the high school ranks. Sosa Agim, obviously. And, he was an in-state guy. So, really tough to go out of state. But, yeah, if they could get one of those and keep hammering away at other positions, man, I think they're off to a really good start so far. So top 15, I think, is doable, but I'm not ready to say they're going to do it yet.
Yeah, well, if you ask Sosa, he will make sure that he's from Texas.
That's true.
He would always say that, well, I'm from Texas, actually.
Yeah, hey, he's proud of it.
Yeah.
Have you seen him lately? You follow him on Instagram? That sucker looks ripped.
No, I haven't followed him. How's he doing?
Incredible.
I mean, he's still in the NFL, I guess, but
yeah, I think he's bounced around a little bit here lately. I want to say Denver may have. I don't want to talk out of class here, but I'll have to get back with you on that. But I thought there was a little bit of a transition there for him recently.
So to get in the
he's with the Colts now.
Okay.
There you go.
To get in the top 15 in recruiting rankings, it is pretty important to have a 5-star. Like, recruiting rankings are very tilted on especially on 24/7 Sports, how they do it on the bell curve, but they're very tilted towards the upper end guys that you sign. So one 5-star can really make a huge difference in your class. Just looking at last year, I think the top 11 teams in the recruiting rankings all had a 5-star. The year before, it was the top 13. In 2021, it was, the top 16 except for Notre Dame and Oregon didn't. But Oregon had 19 4-stars, and Notre Dame had 14 4-stars. So they loaded up pretty good. So you almost have to get a 5-star if you're going to finish in the top 15. That's part of the formula to get there. All right, Danny. Appreciate you, man.
You got it.
All right, everybody. That's Danny West. Again, you follow him at Danny West 24/7 on Twitter, and just has done a great job for us for a number of years, long time in the industry. All right, question time. So I posted for questions on the Razor's Edge Premium Forum. It's part of our part of the package we have at HawgSports.com, where we interact with message board users. Obviously, they interact with each other. Got a lot of insiders, a lot of in-the-know posters, a lot of people that just really know Razorback sports. It's always nice to be able to have people like that you can communicate with, and it's one of the more active message boards in the entire country. At one of the largest sites in the country, one of the elite sites in the country, right here with Arkansas. So Z. Beeler, one of our moderators, says, what's your expectations for next season? I think that Arkansas will do better than they did last year. I think one of the reasons is because they're in a better situation at quarterback. Arkansas won 7 games, which is 2 off what they did the year before when it was considered like a breakthrough season. Obviously, the Liberty game, that's the black eye on the season, I think. You win that, you got 8, And they really struggled, between the Cincinnati game and between the Kansas game. They struggled to win close games. Obviously, the Kansas game never should have been like it was, but they really struggled to win close games. How many times did we see them get stuffed at the goal line? So they went and made a lot of changes, getting Ben Souders, strength coach, just redid the strength and conditioning department, nutrition, all that, redid all that. And, Pittman talks about putting a bigger emphasis now on going forward on 4th down and, feeling more confident in it and practicing it more, setting up 4th downs with, 3rd down plays, like just necessarily trying to get it every time on 3rd down. And we see that happen a lot in games, but he says they never really practice that strategy. So that was one of the big emphases in this past scrimmage from what we understand. So getting better at the goal line, getting better on 3rd down. These games are so the margin in some of these games are so thin. And I'll tell you another thing that to me was a big problem from them last year was punting. They've got to be better at punting. How many times do you remember them like pinning somebody at inside the 5-yard line on a punt? I can remember 49-yard line. There's a great opportunity to pin somebody deep, and the punt goes 28 yards. I remember a lot of that kind of stuff. So they have to be better. Max Fletcher has to be a better punter for them. I was clocking punts the other day in practice, just hang time on him, and he's by far and away better than the other 2 walk-on punters that they have on campus right now. Obviously, Reed Bauer is transferred. I think he's at Memphis, but he transferred out. But Fletcher has the leg. Like, he can get 5+ seconds hang time all the time. It's just that also he'll shank one or he'll pull one. So got to get better at punting. Got to get better at goal line. They have the pieces. I think they've recruited well on the offensive line. I think they did well in the transfer portal at wide receiver. We're going to see guys emerge and step up. I think they did the right moves in the defensive secondary. I like the guys that they hired, the 3 new defensive coaches. They made a lot of changes, bringing guys in. I talked about this with cornerback, but you've got Lorando Johnson, 4-star. Quincy McAdoo, 4-star. Dwight McGlothern, 4-star. Jalen Braxton, 4-star. Ladarius Bishop was a 4-star on one of the 3 major recruiting services, but he wasn't a composite like the other guys I just mentioned. He wasn't a composite 4-star, but he started 7 games in 2021, was injured all last year. He's finally starting to get back out there and doing some stuff. And then you have Jaheim Singletary coming in, former 5-star. When have we been able to say that about any position? Maybe running back somewhere. Maybe when you go back to Felix Jones, Darren McFadden, Peyton Hillis. Maybe back then, but like cornerback's in pretty good shape, in such good shape that you probably need to move somebody or maybe even a couple of guys to safety, because I'm not just blown away with where they are at safety. But they were dead last. Like, offense wasn't that big a problem last year, aside from the short yardage and goal line stuff. They were dead last in passing yards allowed. I've said that several times. And I point to Woodson, Marcus Woodson. At Florida State, they were like 168. That's not right. There's not 168 teams. There's 131 teams. Where am I getting 168? Maybe they were like pretty far down there in passing yards. I can't remember the exact number. They weren't 168, obviously. But they were pretty far down the year before he got there as passing game coordinator on defense. They were one of the worst pass defenses in the country. Last year, they were fourth nationally. I think, here's the number. I think it was like 168 yards allowed last year by Florida State, which put them fourth in the country. I think that's where that's in my head. But that's a dramatic increase. So if Arkansas can make just a little bit of an increase, nobody's asking for you to be fourth in the nation, but improve in that area. And even if everything else stays the same, you got a lot better defense. So stay healthy, keep KJ healthy. But if KJ were to get banged up, I think I feel a lot better about Jacoby Criswell than I did Malik Hornsby or Cade Fortin. And Cade Fortin's still back there and still doing some good things. I see him make some good throws still. But I think Jacoby is finally a guy we can say, that's the guy right there. After KJ, this guy might be the future. He's got 3 years left of eligibility if he takes a COVID year. All right. That was one question. I don't know if I can go that long in all of these. But my expectations are that they're better than they were last year. They should be better than they were last year. 7 wins for this roster, in my opinion. And I don't love the schedule, but we'll get to that, I'm sure. What position group could surprise people the most? I think cornerback, if that's would be a surprise, because I can't just pick like running back. Offensive line, maybe I could pick that. They lost a lot there. I think that they're going to have some answers at wide receiver, and they lost a lot there. But what would be the biggest surprise? I don't know if that counts because of what all I just mentioned, but I think cornerback is going to be in pretty good shape. And they're going to give up some plays, obviously, but I think cornerback will be in pretty good shape. So maybe that's the surprise position. How much of a change? That was from Hogs fan 69. Hog 6. HAW6. It looks like a G. Hall 6. I always get that wrong. He's been with us for 42 months, though. How much of a change is Enos' offense versus what the team has been familiar with for the past several seasons? There will be a lot of things that look very familiar. I think one of the changes we're going to see is not as much fast tempo, although they will have fast tempo. But there will be times where they slow it down. There will be times where they even huddle. There will be times where KJ is under center, which very rarely, I don't know, I'm not even sure if he was ever asked to go under center. Maybe a couple of quick snap type things or something like that, some specialty stuff. Goal line maybe, but we didn't see him under center very much at all. I can't really remember. I feel like I remember one time maybe where they did it real quick or something in a short yardage deal. But we'll see that. They came out in 12 personnel, 2 tight ends right out of the gate in spring practice. I don't remember them ever running 2 tight ends aside from, again, maybe a specialty situation, maybe down at the goal line. I don't remember them just like when they're going up and down the field running 12 personnel. And we saw that. We saw them run 2 backs in the backfield, 21 personnel in the bowl game. I've seen them run 20 personnel with 2 backs and no tight ends. I saw that last week. So we'll see some things here, but they're still going to run RPO. They're still going to go fast. It's just that they'll also probably slow it down. Tempo can mean going slow also. Haw 6 says, your thoughts on the schedule for 2023 favors Arkansas, doesn't it? I don't know that the schedule does favor Arkansas. And I knew I was getting that question, so I brought the schedule up. So here's how it starts out. It starts out 3-0. That's how it starts out. Western Carolina and Little Rock. I'm not a huge fan of starting your season off in Little Rock. I just feel like, the energy should be, in your home environment. But it's fine. Okay, it's Western Carolina. They ought to take care of business in that one. Then it's Kent State in Fayetteville, September 9th. BYU, September 16th in Fayetteville. Not a bad way to start the season. 3 home games, 3-0, most likely. Then, this is what I don't like. And the SEC, it's not up to the SEC to, control where Arkansas plays its home games. Okay? And in this case, they're the home team in Arlington on September 30th. But the SEC also knows that Arkansas is playing that game in Arlington. So, in effect, what you have is you've got BYU September 16th, then you go at LSU September 23rd, you're in Arlington September 30th, you're at Ole Miss October 7th, you're at Alabama October 14th. You're going to go 5 weeks between home games. You go September 23rd to October 21st against Mississippi State. And then after that, you're on the road to Florida. So you've got one home game. The week September 23rd, 30th, October 7th, 14th, 21st, November 4th. You've got one home game. I don't know if you guys remember last October, one home game. Also, one home game last October against Alabama. And that part of that was because there was a bye week in between there. There's no bye week. These are just games, straight games. So you got October 21st, Mississippi State, then you get your bye week, and then you're at Florida. I mean, that is just, you've got one home game. One home game after BYU September 16th through November 4th. And then, and I'm going to tell you something else. I bring up the SEC, okay? I'm not like complaining about the SEC schedule. It's hard every time. All right, but this will be like, okay, out of the last 5 times coming up here, including this time that Arkansas plays Florida, they will have played in Gainesville 4 of the last 5 times. Yes, 4 of the last 5 meetings, including this one coming up, between Arkansas and Florida, have been played in Gainesville. How is that possible, Trey? That can't be right. 2009, they played at Florida. 2013, they played at Florida. Why did they play there at 2013? Because you had new teams entering the SEC and they had to rework the schedule. We'll just ship Arkansas to Florida. Then you had Fayetteville. Arkansas won that game 31-10. And then COVID year came up. Remember, you're thinking, okay, they'll hook Arkansas up. Maybe they'll give them Georgia since they were on the schedule anyway, but they'll hook Arkansas up. No, we'll give them Florida, and that's when Florida was really good. Florida, I think, that year went to the SEC championship game. And then they play them again. And when the new schedules come out, with Texas and Oklahoma coming in, it wouldn't surprise me to see them ship them off to Florida again. But that's just bizarre. 4 of the last 5 meetings between a conference opponent have been played away from Arkansas, have been played in Florida. And then you get Auburn. It's a strong finish for you, If they remember in November, like Frank in Houston used to say, Auburn November 11th in Fayetteville, Florida International in Fayetteville, Missouri in Fayetteville. That's the finish. So, no, I don't love the schedule, the way it shakes out. Now, do I think that Arkansas can win 8 games with the schedule or more? Yes, I do. I do think that's possible. Absolutely believe that's possible. WPS 88 says, when is the last time you enjoyed a plate of warm homemade biscuits and chocolate gravy? This is going to disappoint some people. I don't think I've ever had chocolate gravy. And if I did, I don't remember it. And I know that's an Arkansas thing. It's an Appalachian thing. My family originates more from Georgia. I've lived in Arkansas since I was, a child, 7 years old. But my family still originates from Georgia. So, from a recipe standpoint, I never even knew, chicken and waffles was, a Southern thing. I'd never had chicken, until I was maybe, in college or something. I'd never, knew that was a thing for Southern people. And maybe it's just the Georgia background. I don't know. But, Like if I'm having gravy, I really like sawmill gravy. Biscuits and gravy, sawmill gravy, that's one of my all-time favorites. I think that KFC, at least old school KFC, made the best brown gravy. I've had red eye gravy. I'm going to disappoint Danny West because he's a big chocolate gravy guy. Maybe he'll make it for me sometime. Sorry to disappoint everybody. Hog Wild Dave, who's been with us for 126 months with only 47 posts. You got to post more, Hog Wild Dave. Says, do you think the way Pitt is mixing it up with the depth chart, if that keeps guys that may otherwise hit the portal after spring ball? Absolutely. I think there's a method behind that. I don't think it's surprising that some of these guys that have come in on the transfer portal, like a Trajan Jeffcoat or a John Morgan, regularly find themselves with the third team because you get one free and clear transfer, and okay, maybe a couple of those cases are grad transfers, but I don't think that they can just like transfer again. But they're less likely to transfer than somebody who's already on the roster that sees themselves behind one of those guys. So no, I don't think that that's purely coincidental that Trajan Jeffcoat's probably going to start. A good chance John Morgan starts, but right now they're third team. But I also think spring ball in the same time, like, yes, there's that aspect of it, but at the same time of spring ball, this is the time to try everybody out, to give everybody a real shot where nobody can say, I just didn't get any reps, because that's not what's happening. We're seeing everybody gets an opportunity in the spring, especially, at a position group where there's a vacancy, where you don't have an incumbent starter returning. But that's a good point, Hog Wild Dave. Razorback Football 70, who's been with us 203 months. What excites you most about this year's defense? What worries you the most about this year's defense? The possibilities at cornerback, I just think that they've really improved. And safety still. I mean, yeah, Hudson Clark does some good things. Malik Chavis, to me, has been up and down through his career. And, Jaden Johnson, I thought, took a big step back last year. And those are your top safeties. Cornerback, for obvious reasons I just mentioned, I just think that they have a chance to take a really nice step forward overall. TJ Football 14, been with us 39 months, says, how is the wide receiver room looking? Well, Tyrone Broden got a little banged up. I don't think he was able to scrimmage Saturday because he didn't practice in full Thursday, but hopefully he'll be back out there this week. It's not a major deal with him, just a slight knee sprain. I really like what I'm seeing out of Andrew Armstrong, Isaac Teslaw. One day I'll think that Armstrong or Broden's just as tall as I thought he was going to be, 6'6", 6'7", and faster. Teslaw's, kind of got a little bit bigger build, not that he's built big, but he's quicker than I thought he was going to be. And Andrew Armstrong is kind of what I thought he would be, kind of an all-around type of guy. Plus you got Isaiah Satania, you got Bryce Stevens, Jaden Wilson. Let's not forget about Jaden Wilson, who was hurt earlier in the spring. Sam Pittman talked about him just about every press conference we had with him. Sam Bakke, another guy that's been real steady, who really looks the part physically. I think they're going to be in good shape at the wide receiver room. It's going to be really interesting to see because there will be a guy who emerges above everybody. I'm not ready to say it's going to be this guy. Whereas last fall camp, I looked at Matt Landers and said, man, this guy is probably going to lead. I don't know if he's going to lead Arkansas in receptions, but he's going to lead Arkansas in receiving yardage. I'm on record saying that. And touchdowns, I think I said. And I don't know if I'm ready to say that about a specific guy right now. Dr. Scotty Mack, 260 months with us. 12,555 posts. Ask, is this the year the O-line becomes a strength, or have we recruited way too many OGs instead of OTs? I'm in favor of moving Brady Latham to tackle. Okay, I just think it makes more sense because the guards, I like Patrick Kudus a lot. I think he has a really bright future. I think that Takias Crawford to me is more of a guard. And that might be true with Amarian Harris, although I think he can also play right tackle. But to me, it just makes a little bit more sense when you consider that you're a little more guard heavy, maybe to pop Brady Latham out to left tackle, which he was at right tackle on Thursday, so he's worked both tackle spots. But that's also, I know that they look at him as a guy that, maybe they move to a tackle spot if they have an issue, at a guard spot. If they have a tackle that, gets injured, they move him out and they bring another guy. And the problem with that is you move two people instead of just moving one. But I wouldn't hate seeing Latham at left tackle. I think he can play it. I thought they were going to kind of do that last year with him. Hog Nation 10, new guy. Hog Nation 10, been with us 2 months. Who's your top 3 targets this year? If you're KJ Jefferson, can be wide receiver, running back, or tight end. Top 3 targets. Again, that's hard for me to say, but because of the wide receivers. But I will go with the 3 new guys: Broden, Tesla, Armstrong. I mean, Rocket Sanders had 28 catches last year too. Maybe he gets in there, but I think those 3 guys. Will KJ be draftable after a season with Enos? Hog Nation 10 once again. I think that KJ could possibly be drafted, yes. I think that KJ could get a little bit more accurate. Again, he's 68% last year, but I feel like he misses sometimes, on some shorter throws. He's gotten better and better at that throughout his career. I think Enos will help him with some of the technical aspects of playing quarterback, having been a former quarterback, having 32 years of experience. Not that Browse wasn't able to do that, but I just think some of the nuances and stuff with Enos, some of the things he was able to do with Brandon Allen to bring him along, some of the things I see him teaching in practice, I think he's going to polish him up a little bit better. So where you don't see as many wobbly spirals with KJ, you don't see as many nose down throws, which happen. The deep ball, KJ throws deep ball as well as anybody. I mean, he can really throw a deep ball. But yeah, I think that he's got a chance. I really do think that KJ has a chance. Pro Football Focus came out today with their top 10 returning quarterbacks nationally, and KJ was 9th. And if you're in the top 10, I've seen years where there's been 6 quarterbacks drafted, and there's been other years where there's a lot more. So, I mean, right now we'd probably be talking 6th, 7th round, but we'll see how it goes with him. Hog 2017, been with us 35 months, says, does there seem to be a new attitude on defense? A constant theme was no juice on defense last year. With T-Will and Woodson, does there seem to be a swagger out there already? Swagger, I don't know. I do feel like the energy is a little bit different. I will say that. I feel like the energy is a little bit different. I really like Darren Wilson. Really, for the first time, I was able to watch him a lot on Thursday and haven't been able to see him as much because where defensive backs practice on the field. But yeah, and with Woodson too, I think that there's a little bit of a vibe change back there, and that happens sometimes with just newness. Eventually you're around somebody enough, you're going to get annoyed with certain aspects of their personality, versus a new guy. But eventually you're going to get annoyed with people. You may be annoyed with me after several shows. Not first impression. First impressions are great with me, right? A.J. Green or Rashad Dubinion, second most carries this year. I'm going to go with R-Dub, Hog Nation 10. I'm going to go with R-Dub getting the second most carries. Going back to the bowl game, he had 20 carries. A.J. Green had 13, just maybe basing it off something like that, although I think they're pretty similar. But I go with R-Dub. Hog Nation 10 says, who leads the team in sacks? Last year, I guess the returning sack leader right now would be Christopher Paul, had 4. So maybe I'll stick with Christopher Paul because he wasn't even a full-time starter until the last, third of the season. I'll go Chris Paul, surprise pick. It's not a defensive end. Hog Nation 10 says, who is the third best linebacker, Crook or Manny? I would say Crook right now. I just think now as far as a ceiling, maybe I would say Manny has a higher ceiling because he's 6'2", 6'3", a little bit taller. But man, Crook really has great instincts. He's just not as tall as some of the other linebackers, but he's stout. He's put together well, compact. He moves well. Right now, I'd say Crook. Hog Nation 10 filling up. I mean, you got like 5 questions, 10. Is this the year Marcus Miller actually does something? You know, Marcus has had a lot of injuries through his career. He just hasn't been able to get over that hump. They wouldn't have kept him around this many years if they didn't think that he was, you know, a good player. And so he's got an opportunity depending on what they do in the transfer portal, because really, I mean, they've got 3 guys at defensive tackle that, you know, returning with experience. They've got, let's see, they've got Cam Ball, who's got a little bit, I think he's got a little bit of an ankle issue right now, Torian Carter, and Eric Gregory. And Torian Carter's coming off an injury. Eric Gregory's coming off an injury also. Carter's probably a little farther along than all of them. Gregory has been back in there mixing it up, though. So really they've got 3 experienced defensive tackles. I think there's an opportunity for Marcus Miller, but it also depends on what happens in the transfer portal. Hog Nation 10 asks, is punter going to be fixed? We discussed punter a little bit. 10 also says, let's just make it a mailbag at this point. I agree. QB2, gun to head at this moment. Quarterback 2 is Jacoby Criswell. Nation's last one. Who is backup snapper if Bo got hurt? Last year it was starter Ricky went down, Kudus, Eli Henderson, Braun. I think it could be Patrick Kudus. They've worked him there a little bit. I think that depending on how they do things with this, you know, the starting group. I mean, I do think backup center is a little bit of a concern right now, but right now it feels like Kudus, and if it is Kudus, maybe they shift things around on the offensive line. The second guy is Josh Street, who I know they like Josh Street, but just because you're listed as the second-team player doesn't mean you're the next guy to go in, you know. Like usually there's a swing tackle, 6-man, and a swing interior guy. Runway 3886, 7 months with us. Are we looking to backfill the assistant DL coach? I thought he did well in recruiting. Yeah, he's off. Looks like off to the NFL. They'll find somebody. I'm not sure who that would be right now. Hog Nation 10, you're back. Hog Nation 10. You said the last one. Speaking of, can we get some more access, analysts, GAs somehow? Or I'm not sure exactly what the number of analysts that they have right now is. I feel like it was 6 or something. I'm not sure how many. But GAs is a pretty steady number usually. Hog Nation 10 says, once again, last question. What are your honest thoughts about Wilson and Woodson just taking both spots back there? Super interesting. I've never heard of it before. I mean, we'll see how it works out, but I think that Woodson, I'm not sure what the setup was at Florida State, but, I mean, defensive back is like, they all have to know what the other guys are doing. And more so now, I think there's a blend of players. Like Al Walcott will be a nickel. He's a little bit bigger, 6'2", 215. But aside from that, you don't see 215-pound safeties. Very rarely that you see a 215-pound safety anymore. They look more like cornerbacks, because cornerbacks, you also don't see very often a 5'9" cornerback. That used to be fairly common, 5'10" cornerback. Usually every cornerback you see is going to be at least 5'11", 6'2", something like that. Quincy McAdoo and Dwight McGlothern are both 6'2". Lorando Johnson, I think, is 6'1". Jaheim Singletary, 6'2". So you don't see short corners much anymore. You don't see like super heavy safeties. So what do you see? You see a lot of 6'2", 200 across the board. So they all are pretty much interchangeable now, I would guess. So I guess it's not that crazy to think that you could do that. What else we got? We're going long. All right, I got a couple more questions. Hog 2017 says looking more to Nico. So Nico's been working more at defensive end. I think Nico's got a future, but they like him at defensive end. That's where they're working him now. And Hog 2017 says, I thought, okay, he's still talking about Nico. Let me make sure that I don't have any more here with our HawgSports members. Nope, that's it. Hog Nation 10 dominated the questions. But we appreciate everybody's questions, and we appreciate all of you guys tuning in. And if you haven't done so, just take a moment to pop over to there's that 5-star. Pop over to Apple Podcasts and throw us that 5-star review if you haven't done so. We would really appreciate that. It makes all the difference in the world. We haven't had one in a little bit. So throw us a 5-star review there. Let other people know what to expect. I think we're getting close to 900 reviews so far. So certainly appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, do that. That would help. Oh, that's my daughter's show. If you haven't done that, subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit the notifications bell so you're alerted anytime we upload new videos. And, of course, follow us on Facebook. All right, everybody. Appreciate you joining us. We'll be back with you guys next week unless something crazy happens. Hopefully not. Thoughts and prayers with all you people out in Central Arkansas. Wynn, just everywhere that was impacted by the tornado. I know it wasn't just in Arkansas, but that's certainly the area that hits home most. So we're thinking about you guys out there and praying for you. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Arkansas back on the practice field Tuesday, so go to HawgSports.com for all the latest news there. And, of course, it's portal season with basketball, so you're going to want to check out what Curtis Wilkerson has and, of course, Andrew Ellis with baseball. And recruiting never stops with Danny West. All right, everybody, thanks for joining me. This has been Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, and we'll catch you next time.